Femme Fatale meets Tim Page.
Phnom Penh, Raffles de Royal Hotel, 1989.
Dao stopped her motorbike in an alley and pushed the poison darts deep into the earth. She took apart the bamboo gun, tossed it into a pile of trash, rode to the Raffles de Royal Hotel, showered, changed into evening clothes, and walked into the illustrious Elephant Bar. It had been 10 years since she watched Bong Prat murder her stepfather during her time under the oppression of the Khmer Rouge. Dao felt relieved that her vengeance was fulfilled and that she had no remorse for taking his life.
Madam, you look beautiful tonight. Would you like tea?
The waiter asked.
Thank you. No, I would like the femme fatale, please.
A gentleman at the table next to her noticed her beauty and poise. Dao looked at him politely and was drawn to the photographs in the large book he was holding. When her drink arrived, the man raised his glass, and Dao raised her glass to toast. She could see the book had dramatic images of war and read the cover, 10 years after, Vietnam Today by Tim Page. The man noticed Dao looking at the book, so he opened it to the page with his photograph on the author's page and held it up to his face so Dao could see.
You are Tim Page.
Yes, I am. And you are?
My name is Dao.
I had this book published last year and finally got a copy. It arrived today.
Tim passed the book to her.
I have another book coming out soon with more wartime photographs. It's called Page After Page, Memoirs of a War-Torn Photographer. I'm looking forward to getting a copy.
The pictures are...
She didn't have a word to describe what she was seeing.
Were you a soldier?
No, but I was with them in battle.
Dao paused at an image of a man face down in brown water and touched it with her finger. Her chin quivered slightly, and her eyebrows furrowed. She hadn't thought of the horrors she lived through in a long time.
You have been in a war.
It was more of a statement than a question.
No. Well, yes. I don't know what it was, but many people died. I'm Thai, and my family was in Phnom Penh in April 1975 when the Khmer Rouge made everyone leave the city and go to the country to grow rice. They told us the Americans were going to bomb the city and to bring only a few items because we would return soon. Of course, they lied. My brother and I escaped to Thailand after 3 years, but the rest of my family did not survive.
Dao continued to look at the photographs. Tim watched her as he sipped his drink. An image of a village on fire with a naked, muddy baby crying on the ground caused Dao to shiver like tasting a lemon for the first time. Another photograph was of a handsome, sweaty man from a low angle looking down with a concerned look.
Tell me about this picture.
Yes, interesting. You should ask about that one. It was 1966 in Vietnam, and a grenade went off near me. Some of the fragments went into my face. You can see the scar. My best friend carried me to the hospital, and I took that picture of him while I was bleeding to death.
Did your best friend live through the war?
No, he didn't make it. We worked together, and we saw a lot of action. I was injured 4 times, but my friend never got wounded. His name was Sean Flynn. He was famous because everyone in America knew his father was the movie star Errol Flynn. Anyway, Sean and our friend Dana Stone, another photographer, rode their motorcycles into Cambodia, and they came across some Viet Cong soldiers. They stopped them and brought them into the forest. No one ever saw them again.
I'm sorry for your friends. The Khmer Rouge took people into the forest, and they never returned. I watched a soldier take my stepfather away and murder him behind a shack. That man was our driver before the war. My stepfather was a Cambodian doctor, and he helped many American soldiers during the war with Vietnam. We lived in Bangkok and moved to Phnom Penh when my mother married. And well, you know the rest. I just came back to see my old house.
I'm glad your stepfather helped wounded soldiers. I know the hospital, and I'm sure I knew some of the men.
Dao ordered another femme fatale.
Do you know the story behind the drink?
A little. The waiter told me the first night I arrived, but I was not listening. Please tell me about femme fatale.
A femme fatale is an attractive, seductive, and dangerous woman. Is that you?
Dao tilted her head and shrugged as though the answer was a possible yes.
The drink is champagne, cognac, and wild strawberry cream. It is named after the wife of the US President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated in 1963. 4 years after her husband was murdered, she was invited to Cambodia by King Norodom Sihanouk.
Why would the king invite her to his country?
Good question. Mrs. Kennedy was known and loved worldwide, and the king was concerned about the relations between the USA and Cambodia. Jackie always wanted to see Angkor Wat, and the king thought her visit would strengthen their alliance. Jackie desperately needed to escape the drama in Washington, D.C.
I see. Interesting.
She stayed at the Raffles Hotel and spent evenings in the Elephant Room. A friend of her late husband, Lord David Arlec, joined her in Phnom Penh. They were in love and had a romance here at the hotel. They were public figures and their relationship didn't last. But before she died, she confessed that he was the greatest love of her life.
Fascinating. Thank you.
She raised her glass to toast, and when they clinked,
To the Femme Fatale.
She took a sip and asked,
What is it like to be a war photographer?
once you've been to war, it's the biggest thing in your life. You form mateships, which are tougher, harder, and more cemented than with your family. They become your brothers and your sisters.
Tim paused his storytelling and took a sip of his drink.
I didn't know my mother, and when I was a baby, my father was killed by a torpedo in the Second World War. I suppose I found the family I needed with friends that also took photographs and wrote stories about war and politics.
Were you afraid of being killed?
Of course, I was shot 4 times. You're out there confronted with whatever horror is going on, so you just get on with the job and find the best frame you can. Perhaps that's why war photography is so powerful. There are no political considerations. You are face to face with the rawest of reality in front of you.
Dow was ready to retire to her room, and she asked Tim one last question.
Tim, I will leave early tomorrow morning, but have not returned the motorcycle I rented. I paid for 3 weeks, but only used it for 2. Would it be possible for you to return it for me? I am sorry, but I don't think it will be dangerous.
Dow grinned at her last comment.
Of course I will.
Tim could not deny her request. Dow gave him the key to the motorbike and the rental agreement and told him where it was parked in the Raffles garage. She asked him to keep the deposit, gave him a Thai kiss on the cheek, and turned to leave.
Dow, wait. It was a genuine pleasure to meet you. Please accept this book as my gift to you.
Tim signed the book and gave it to Dow.
Thank you.
She took the book, thanked him graciously, and bowed with her hands together as in prayer. She decided to stay for a bit longer and ordered a tea while she looked at his book. Tim took his seat and watched Dow without interrupting.
It took a lot of courage to take these photographs. What happened was horrible. And these pictures let people see war for what it is. Tim Page, do you believe your work made a difference?
Tim was impressed with her profound and appropriate question. He repeated it.
Do I believe my photographs made a difference for the good?
He took a deep breath and tried to explain as best as possible.
The only good war photograph is an anti-war photograph. I said that years ago during an interview, and it has been repeated many times. War ends, and people forget the horror, while politicians promote honor and glory. My photographs will last long after the war ends. To answer your question, Dow, I believe my work makes a difference. I risked my life many times for that very reason.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for your book. The Khmer Rouge was defeated, but the soldiers who killed so many people are now in Phnom Penh abusing children. The heartless demons.
Dow looked away to hide her contempt for men who lost their souls and committed atrocities without remorse. Less than an hour ago, she shot poison darts into the throat of the demon who murdered her stepfather.
I saw many terrible things as a little girl in Cambodia and couldn't do anything. Now I am a wealthy woman, and you gave me an idea of how I can make a difference. Thank you again, Tim Page. Good night.
Dao bowed and retired to her room, holding his book close to her chest.